Hi everyone, and welcome to another video by BioTeach. This time I want to focus on the BTEC assignment Unit 9, which is called Human Regulation and Reproduction. There are three learning aims to this unit, and Learning Aim A looks at the interrelationship and nervous control of the cardiovascular and respiratory system. This video is focusing on gas exchange in humans and the ventilation system. There are a number of videos on a playlist on my channel that are relevant to this unit, so just click on the link that's just flashed up on your screen now to access them all. Now, in humans, gaseous exchange takes place in specialized organs known as the lungs. This is something you learnt about in your GCSEs. Humans breathe to ensure that the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place between the lungs and the blood, and gas exchange specifically occurs in the alveoli. Now, the alveoli are specially adapted for gaseous exchange. So you've got this kind of beautiful single layer of cells, and that's there for a fast and short diffusion pathway. The alveoli also have a very large surface area. Basically, we've got millions of them in each of the lungs, and they're really efficient for exchanging gases. They also have this network of blood capillaries that you can see on the diagram in front of you. That makes an excellent blood supply for efficient gaseous exchange. And that also provides a concentration gradient. Basically, that creates a concentration gradient between oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood and the lungs, and so that allows diffusion to take place at an efficient rate. Now, in order to get gas into our bodies, we use our nose and our mouth as our breathing pathways. Usually the nose is our primary pathway, but we can also breathe in air through our mouths, as we all know. Now, the air that goes into our bodies will go in through a trachea. The trachea is basically a tube that's supported by C-shaped rings of cartilage, which prevents kinking. They basically allow the trachea to remain open and to allow the passage of air through it. The walls of the trachea contain smooth muscle and elastic tissue, which allows for constriction and recoil as the air goes in and out. The bronchi, which lead into each of the lungs, have a similar structure to the trachea. They are smaller, but they have cartilage to keep them open. At the end of the bronchi, we branch off into bronchioles that have no cartilage or ciliated epithelial cells, but they do contain muscle that can contract to control the air movement. The lining of the alveolus itself is composed of flattened epithelial cells that are surrounded by collagen and elastic tissue, and that allows for the alveoli to stretch and recoil during breathing. So when they fill up with air, they will stretch, and when they're exhaling air, they will be able to recoil and go back to their deflated form. And as I said earlier, the alveoli are surrounded by a dense capillary network. Now, in order to understand the structure of our gaseous exchange system or our respiratory system, you can imagine it to be a bit like an upside-down tree. If you imagine the tree the right way up as you look outside of your window, you would probably be able to imagine a large trunk that then goes off into smaller branches. So as you go up that particular trunk, you'll have some primary and secondary branches coming off. That's the equivalent of our bronchi. And at the end of each of those branches, you will have smaller branches, which is the equivalent of our bronchioles. And at the end of those bronchioles, you would have leaves or fruit if it's a fruit-bearing tree, and that's the equivalent of our alveoli. So if you take that tree that you've just imagined or you've been looking at and you turn it upside down and you imagine it in our body, that's exactly what our respiratory system or our ventilation system structure is all about. Now, the next part that you need to mention in the past task for Unit 9 is the topic of ventilation, which consists of inspiration, which is breathing in, and expiration, which is breathing out. Ventilation is controlled by the movements of three main components of our ventilatory system. So you've got the diaphragm, which is that red dome-shaped muscle that you see just underneath the rib cage. You've got the internal and the external intercostal muscles, which are the muscles in between each of our ribs. And then, of course, you've got the rib cage as well. Now, in this particular animation, you can see the inhalation and the exhalation. Now, when we're inspiring, what we would notice is that the diaphragm, that red muscle, will contract. It will move downwards to make more space in your thoracic cavity for the air to enter. The external intercostal muscles at this particular point will contract, and the rib cage will move up and out. This is what causes the volume in the thoracic cavity to increase, and that causes the air pressure in the lungs to decrease, and that's what allows air to be drawn into the lungs. Inspiration is actually an active process. That means it needs energy to actually happen. The opposite of inspiration is expiration. So this is where the diaphragm will relax and return back to its dome shape. The external intercostal muscles will relax and the internal ones at this point will contract, and that allows the rib cage to move down and in. This then also means that the volume of the thoracic cavity will decrease, and that causes the air pressure in the lungs to increase, and that also then forces the air out of the lungs. And that's what expiration is, the breathing out process. Expiration is actually a passive process, so comparatively to inspiration, it doesn't require any energy. I've got this table over here, at which point you can pause this video and you can write down what I've just been talking about. This is probably a good table to include in your assignment, but please make sure you put things in your own words as much as possible. Hopefully this video has been super helpful for you to complete part of your past task for Unit 9, Assignment A. If you've got any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. Bye for now.